You are watching the CVS Health post-game show. A 10-game win streak snapped for the United States as they fall on this rainy night in Seattle to Japan 1-0. Sarah Walsh alongside Crystal Dunn, Shannon Box, Becky Sauerbrunn, and Julie Foudy, who just made it down to the desk after calling this game here. And this is not entirely surprising. Emma Hayes changed her complete lineup from the first game they played against Japan. So not shocking the result, Becky, but what did you learn about the Americans out of this game?
I think I learned that when you play a team like Japan, if technically things are a little off, like the precision to beat a team like Japan has to be better, or you need a little bit of luck on your side. And I think both were lacking in the U.S. team. Everything was just a bit off. The passing was a bit off in the final third. The decision-making was a little slow. There was a little bit of an inability to beat the press. And so all these little things add up to just not being able to beat a quality team.
Yeah, let's watch how this one unfolded. Here's a look at the highlights from this game, starting with Japan scoring the first goal of this game. Shannon came 27 minutes into this match.
Again, Japan did such a good job with that back press. They win it in midfield. They do a little combination play in here, and they get that ball out wide where there's some space left by Lily Reel coming out. And then when Hamano gets that ball on that outside, there's so much space there. Lily Reel is tucked in too much. She needs to get back outside, and then this 1v1 defending, she just bites too easy. And that ball near post, Fallon probably should have had that.
How do you get this out of your mind, Becky, if you're a defender and what just happened to Lily Reel happens to you?
You just have to accept it and then try to play your way back in. Just simplify it, connect your passes, communicate, make connections on the field. And just, there's mistakes that happen. Unfortunately, when you're a defender or a goalkeeper, when you make those mistakes, it usually leads to a chance on goal.
They tested Fallon Tullis-Joyce tonight, Crystal. That does not always happen, but you want action if you're a net. She got plenty of it tonight.
I mean, yeah, that was an incredible save for her. And obviously, you know, after the goal was scored, for her to come up big with a big save obviously gets you back in the game. And you know what? It's what happens when you play at the highest level.
It was really great seeing Tierna Davidson get her first minutes with the national team. And I think she had an immediate impact. I mean, that beautiful left foot of hers really opened up some space. Here's a chance for Sophia Wilson, who gets a shot off here. But Tierna's passing range really unlocks a lot of the field.
Couple chances late in this game, but Foudy, it just wasn't enough. We've heard Emma talk about finishing, wanting to be better in that final third, and they just didn't do that tonight.
So many lessons you can take away from it. I think one, too, here's the opportunity that we were just talking about and the range that Tierna Davidson has. But I also think in those final 10 minutes, you play like this is a game you have to win, and you didn't see that urgency, and that's another lesson you see with this. And I do think the subs came in, they made a big impact, but there wasn't that urgency you see in a tournament type of play when you get to those final 10 minutes that I saw in this group, and I think that needs to change.
They have now lost to Japan in 2 of their last 3. Those are our match highlights presented by CVS Health. Look at Emma Hayes, that pretty much sums it up. You better believe that's how she feels after this one. They will get another chance to get back at Japan. This series moves to Denver next. Happens on Friday night, likely in some snow. Look, the United States outpossessed Japan. They outshot Japan. But at the end of the day, they are not coming away with the win, Shannon.
Yeah, and again, we said this at halftime. Possession to possess doesn't mean anything if there's no purpose to it. So we definitely could see, especially in the second half, there's a lot of possession in the back half with our outside backs, with our defenders. And so it's breaking that first line, and I think that was a big struggle for the U.S. tonight.
Well, here was a huge positive.
My goalkeeper question from yesterday, just on why you decided to start Fallon tonight, and then in terms of the starting lineup being younger than the first game and a little less experienced, what do you think is the benefit of playing a lot of those players together with like 1 or 2 veterans versus maybe mixing half and half, or a couple less experienced players with veterans?
Yeah, I mean, first off, you know, Fallon and Claudia were both earmarked to play a game. I know people don't want to hear this from me, but I don't go, oh, we've got a game in Seattle, she plays there, she plays there. I don't think like that. I wouldn't be a top professional if I did. So it was in order to develop different relationships, that was the decision taken. I think when I think about She Believes 12 months ago, I thought they played us off the park. I thought they controlled the game. Yes, we didn't build up very well. Yes, we weren't compact as a team. I look at the progress we've made. in so many elements of our game. And there's things that actually have progress from the last game to today. Some of that stuff was better. But at the highest level, you've got to be decisive in the boxes. So giving up pretty poor goal, one, but not creating enough down the other end, because sometimes, as I always describe this, it's like when someone gives you a Michelin star recipe and they say, well, I mean, you can cook it, right? And you go, well, I'll have a go, but I'm not sure I'm going to make it look like that Michelin star chef. I think we've got players that have some of the recipe and they're trying to imply it in their entirety, but it's a work in progress. And I think if I play solely to win, we maybe don't change a lot in these games. We play the vast majority of seniors with a sprinkle few, more seniors, sprinkle few, more, you know, but that's not where I'm at. And I don't regret those decisions. I just know when you're a player that shines against a certain type of opponent, for example, teams we might have played in January, let me see what you look like against Japan. Why? Well, the game, what I'm noticing about our team is that we're actually really dominant. We're dominant in possession, so we better be good with our counter-press. We better be good with our rest defence. We better be good when you go 1-0 down and the team goes from a back four to a back five. You better be good at making sure when they go to a back five and the clock's ticking and you need a little bit more urgency. So these are all situations that you can't simulate. You can go into a classroom and say, here's the strategy for what happens when we go 1-0 down. But it's like cooking that recipe. You won't know till you feel it. And so, again, in terms of measuring progress, I go back to playing Japan last year with a largely inexperienced group. I think we dominated a lot of really good things without having the secret sauce. So, one. Two, they're a world-class team. I think when you win the first one, inevitably, you know, the second one becomes that challenge. They are a top side, so we have to give them a lot of credit. And game on for the third game.
Go ahead, T.
Tamara Griffin with The Athletic. You answered a bit of the question that I had, but how important is it to be able to assess essentially B team versus B team? I talked to Tobin Heath a day or two ago, and she commented on the fact that she thinks that this is the most deep Japan side that she's seen in a long time, and they also made pretty wholesale changes between Saturday's roster and this one. So it sounds like you are still seeing improvements from a lot of the players that you employed today in the starting 11, but how important is it that they are improving sort of at a similar pace as their opponents?
Yeah, good question. I said it felt a little bit like WSL versus NWSL tonight. They got 17 players that play in WSL. They're all top players. We've got X amount of players playing in NWSL. So it gave some good insight to the development of players as a result of the subsequent leagues. But what it lacked, perhaps, is that bit of experience. You know, you see Tiana come into the game. She hasn't played for a long time, yeah, but she brings experience. And it's something you can't necessarily, you know, teach. You've lived it. Same with Lindsay coming on the pitch, that little bit of experience. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, if I'd have come in at half-time, we wouldn't have given away, which, for me, is a poor goal. You're saying to yourself, well, OK, actually, I think it was comfortable for us in possession. We broke pressure. We were able to get into good. We lack the details. So stacking up, if we're solely looking at the result, Japan won, we lost. But you can't look at it like that when you're trying to develop players to be prepared for the highest level, because it just means you'll never play them, or you will always play them in the most comfortable circumstances. I don't know, coming into a game with seniors, all of those things. But that means I'll only develop 3 or 4 of them, as opposed to players that, quite frankly, I think Japan have been a technically dominant side that have outpossessed most of their opponents. I don't think that was the case this evening. But we've got to close the gaps in the final third, especially when a team collapses into a back five. But also, let's be honest here. We've still got players like Soph still coming back, Trin still coming back. I always think the final third in football, that's where connections really matter. And it's still very early on for us with that. So it looks a little clunky to me.
We did have 67% of the possession, right?
Hi, Carrie Anderson with Yahoo Sports. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, there are kind of three things that went into the context of today's game. One is the return to Seattle. Y'all haven't played here in quite a while. Another was the new grass and kind of how that felt under players' feet. And then the third was the weather, which is just a little bit unlucky. I can't stress enough how nice it was a week ago. How does that change the game? How do those things affect the game? How do the players feel about any of those factors when it comes to this game?
I think the first one, I've said before, it's nice to travel around the country and be in soccer hotbeds, and it was great. Certainly, you could feel the crowd. Sometimes I wanted to give them a little bit more in terms of what we were doing. Second of all, the field, I think it played nicely. I didn't get a sense that there was an issue with that. However, because it was so wet, it played really quick. So I think our short passes were, anything that wasn't put into people's feet, if it was a misplaced pass or something that's over here, it just ran away from us. So yes, it plays a part, but this is football. You've got to play the conditions, and I think it was a nice surface.
What else do we have in the room? We'll go right there, and then we'll go back there. Okay.
Throughout the match, as you were attempting to break them down, it seemed like you had a lot of success switching fields with Moultrie in the first half. When Trinity came in, what were the areas that you thought created the best opportunities for success breaking them down?
I think, as I keep explaining, when you play the best teams, you got to do everything on 1 and 2 touch, and you got to move it into areas, out of areas, switch the field. And I thought at times we took too long to do it. And then when we got into those areas, I think they are one of the best teams at getting back into position and protecting their box. They put bodies in central areas, and if you're not decisive with that, then they'll clog it up and they make it difficult. Then add to the fact, well, let's go 5 at the back. They want to win the game going 5 at the back. It presents another challenge because there's even more numbers. So sometimes, there's always a tendency you want to say, just get the ball in the box. But yeah, it's really difficult when you've got 3 centre-backs in the width of the goal. You have to work the box a little bit more, a little bit like the Lindsay Horan chance. But I think being decisive in those moments require being played in together. And I think, like I said, there's areas I know we absolutely have made progress in, and there's areas I've seen over the 2 games that I'm like, we need to add these things. We really do against the top opponents to be decisive.
In the back.
Hi, Ruben Santa Cruz from Area Sport Network. What is your opinion about tonight, and what do you want to see in the next game?
I think I'd like to see improvements in the final third. I actually felt we built up really well and broke their press really well. I'd like to see us do it on minimum touches so that we can put ourselves in better positions before they get set. And then I'd like us to manage the game moments depending on what the scoreline is. Do you need a goal? Do you need to maintain a league? All the little, nuanced stuff that you need to have, which, listen, when you've got 8 seniors on the field, these things are a little easier. But, I'm a developer of players, and they need to go through these things. It'll get us one step closer to where we are, but we cannot always simply play just for the result. But, yes, we don't like to lose.
All the way in the back over there. Wait for it, sorry.
Wilder Isom with Stumptown Footy. These kind of trio of games against the same opponent is kind of a unique thing. It happens fairly often with friendlies, but going forward, you're playing down in California where it's nice and sunny. You come up here where it's rainy, but you're still playing the same team. How do you approach that where you're playing against the same opponent depending on their lineups, but you're also getting a bunch of different variables? You're getting the opportunity to play a bunch of different people. How do you look at that with like the opportunity to play against the same team a few different times?
I always felt when I was coaching in the Champions League, if you won the first game, the second one was always tougher, because the losing team always, they study their things that they need to do better. So I think swinging like it is not a surprise. The two top teams on show. But I think being able to handle different environments, different weather patterns, we're going to altitude now, is preparation for major tournaments. So I think they're important. Like I said, if we would have picked a lesser opponent and I'd have sat here and said, what a great night, we've won by multiple score lines, I'm sure I'd feel good and I'd fill your columns with lots of things that further enhance the reputation of the team. But I don't believe in it. Where you can push yourself to play against the very best opponents in every situation, that is how you improve. So, as I said the other day in my press conference, we have to keep handling the hard better, no matter who's on the field.
Let's go online to Zaiditu. Go ahead.
Hi, Emma. Zaiditu with Kinami Sport. Maika Hamano obviously scored that goal in the first half, and you have had the opportunity to witness a bit of Maika's growth firsthand, having coached her during your time at Chelsea. For people who may only be paying closer attention to Maika now on the international stage, what's something about her game or her mentality that you recognized during your time coaching her that maybe isn't as visible, yet makes her so effective?
I first watched Maika play and win a golden boot for Japan, and I'd watched her probably career leading up that to know that she's a world-class talent. I think first of all, she's got really good movement in and around the box. Technically, you see the Asian Cup final, the goals she scores against Australia. I've seen her score them many a time. But listen, all Japanese players are technically proficient. But I think what she does have, she's got an eye for goal. And those things are really hard to find. The combination of a player that can make a final pass, can make a final run, but also finish with the quality she's got. That's why I think she's elite.
Unless there's anything else in the room.